This is the Writers Podcast, a Writers After Dark radio production, bringing you the best in writing advice, news, trends, and interviews. Hosted by award-winning authors S.K. Anthony and Raymond Esposito.
Hello and welcome back to the Writers Podcast. I'm Raymond Esposito here with my co-host S. Catherine Anthony. And tonight we're bringing you part 2 of everything you need to know about author signings.
We're starting this episode with Terry Maggart, who will help remind you about the importance of books conferences,
how he feels about Once Upon a Book,
and what factor makes him choose one event over another.
Terry, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books?
Well, since you asked, I'm a history professor who has been a nerd for almost all of my life. So writing for me was sort of a realization where I wanted to get serious about it, and I did.
Do you think you have to qualify being a history professor and being a nerd? I mean, don't those isn't that a pre-qualifying event to being a history professor?
That's an assumption.
So how many conferences have you attended, Terry?
I've been writing seriously for 3.5 years, and this is about my 10th. And it is, of course, the experience with Stacy is the pinnacle of how good a conference can be. You know, you're getting the absolute best of everything here at this type of a conference. I've been to a couple that I got up and walked out of one.
Oh, okay.
Whoa.
I got in a physical altercation with somebody at one.
That doesn't sound like a good time.
If you go to a biker's book conference, of course you're going to fight.
Bikers.
Okay, first of all, the Fluffy Bunnies had it coming to town. Secondly, they were wearing colors.
What would you say is the biggest benefit of attending a book conference?
Okay, everybody is struggling for recognition and that dirty word exposure. You know, we're all struggling for it. But this creates a relationship with your readers. The distinction between this and just selling somebody a book online is they might love your book, but if they come here and they meet you and they see how excited, like I love dragons. I stood and talked today for 2 hours about dragons. There are other nerds out there like me that want to stand and talk about. They're not going to forget that, and I'm not going to forget them. But really, you're also building your review team and building your beta team and building your street team. And you're doing it in an atmosphere where everyone likes the same thing, books. They're all here for the same reason. I think it's a no-brainer to do it, and I encourage young authors to do it.
Big conferences, small it's a 3-part question. Big conferences, big ones. Small, more intimate. Which do you prefer? What do you think what are the benefits of each?
Big conferences have the benefit of a budget. And it's the con, of course, to it immediately is it's difficult to get seen. I went into a large event that was extremely well run, and I was almost knocked over physically by the explosion of glitter and noise and everything. It was just this, like going into a circus. I've done some events that are relatively small, that are intimate, and you really do bond with your readers. And also, let's face it, I'm not just trying to sell books. I read constantly, so it gives me a chance to talk to people. Like, what's your favorite book? That ought to be your opening line all the time because I find great stuff. So there's a benefit to both of them. I think anybody that's thinking their strategy through as a writer will do both. You need to have your elevator pitch because this is a lot like speed dating, except with books.
Well, there's no way to get over that fear that no one's going to come to your booth.
No.
And it may be a reality.
No.
I don't think it's any more dangerous than when the first book when you hit publish. You're putting it out there. There's exposure.
I'll tell you this. It's not as bad as getting turned down for a date.
Right.
You pack up, you go to Cracker Barrel, it's over.
I don't have any personal experience with getting turned down for a date, but
and what
that happens to people.
I just wish you were more confident.
Yeah, I've heard things like that in the friend zone. I've never been there. As Carol will tell you, because we talk about it all the time.
I always get turned down. So when selecting a conference, what's the one factor that makes you choose one over another?
The people that are there. That's really easy. There are people that have such stellar reputations because there is a level of trust here. You're giving somebody money for an event a year in advance, So there's got to be a level of trust. And the other thing is, a lot of these people are authors too, and I actually go and look at their books because their books indicate to me the level of detail and care that they're going to give to the conference. For me, I use that as a sort of a litmus test.
We would definitely do that too. The whole researching the book. I totally start Stacy and everything.
Yeah.
too.
And Rise of the Sea Witch, you go look at the
sounds
cover of
great.
Rise of the Sea Witch and you go, oh, this is somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. So since you love Once Upon a Book event, I think it's safe to say that you will be attending next
Oh,
year.
yes. Yes, this is, first of all, this is an author-to-author thing. Spread yourself around. Go different places. But if you find a place where everybody's great and you know you're going to have a great time, then go back. And this is an easy decision to make.
Jerry, thank you for joining us.
I hope you enjoyed Raymond and Terry's newfound romance as much as I did.
Yes, we have been discussing dates for our big day and registering at the Walmart.
In the meantime, though, you can find out more about Terry and his books over at terrymugert.com.
As you can see, the trust in the people behind a book conference is crucial for the authors that we've talked to.
Author Hope Daniels feels much the same way.
Now, Hope lives in Michigan, so it was easy for her to get to Once Upon a Book. Hope, tell us a little bit about what you write.
I do write a paranormal romance with my co-author Alicia Dawn, and we write the Magical Forces series. And I also have a urban fantasy book out with an anthology that was written for Meals on Wheels with our publishing house, Crushing Hearts Black Butterfly.
So what inspired you to attend Once Upon a Book conference?
We were here last year, and the ball actually was one of the driving factors. The idea of being able to dress up as an adult. You don't have that anywhere else, it seems like it, but that was part of it. And then this year, Stacy added panels, and it has been amazing.
So what was your biggest takeaway from the panel?
Hearing from the readers what they wanted to see in not only in newsletters, but what they want to see in books.
So what would you tell an author who was thinking about attending this event or one like it, and maybe is a little apprehensive, doesn't know whether they should or not, if it's going to be beneficial? What kind of advice would you give them?
Oh, definitely to attend, especially this one. I would definitely bring them to any event that Stacy puts on. It is not only fun, it is informative, and she makes it very comfortable for readers as well as authors.
What's the one thing that if you see this being advertised, so to speak, for the conference, you see that thing, you're like, that's the one I'm going to? Is there one driving thing, if you say, I see that, that's the one, I'll choose that over all others?
I'm going to say the person who is behind the driving force behind it. If you know that it is a person that you know and trust. Unfortunately, in this book world, there have been individuals who have tried to plan an event this large and it has not worked out. People have lost their money, so have to trust the person who is putting it on.
That thing that is kind of losing out, I assume you're talking about readers don't show up.
Not only readers, but just that the event doesn't take place itself, whether it's poor planning.
So the key is the hostess.
Yes.
Oh, I think that was great. Thank you.
And you can find Hope over at hopedanielsauthor.wixsite.com/Hope Daniels.
As you've heard, Once Upon a Book is a great event, but it's not the only one out there, and some of the authors we talked to attend many, many conferences.
So we wanted to hear just what makes or breaks an event for them. First up, to discuss that, is author Jessica Cage.
Jessica, why don't you tell us a little bit about your books and about yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being with the Writers Podcast.
Thank you.
Hey, before we get started, can we do the Jessica Jones, Luke Cage joke? Or could we use that up?
Oh my God, yes.
Because I'm going to start. I want to start using your name as my pen name because it is so cool.
I was born with it. That was my mom's name, gave it to me. So
I just got lucky.
That's you're cheating now.
Everyone thinks I made it up. They're like, "Is this Luke Cage?" Well, before the Luke Cage phenomenon, it was Nicolas Cage, and I'm like, "That's not even his real name."
He stole mine.
This is my real name.
It's just there's
names that fit perfectly on a book. Mine is not one of them. Yours is. So I'm always jealous when I see someone who didn't create a pen name but just has the right name for a book cover. Okay, so you and your book.
A bit about me and my book. So I am from Chicago, Illinois, to be specific. I write fantasy, urban fantasy to be exact. My book that I am predominantly touring with now is the Siren series, which is about a woman named Serenata, who is the daughter of a siren and a warlock.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's up my alley. All right, so Jessica, how many author signings have you attended?
Oh my God! Over the last 5 years, I have probably been to about 40.
Wow.
I started out like really strong going, and then like this last year or so I've kind of slowed down. But I was just having fun. And then I live in Chicago, and it's an area that's like, it's always something. There's always an event for writers and, you know, in general to just go to. So I am always like getting in the local, like whenever I can.
What do you like about the Once Upon a Book event? Was that your first time going, or is this your second?
No, this is my second. I went to the first one and I fell in love with everything Stacey Rourke did, and I was like, I have to go back. And I think as I'm becoming like, I've been in the game a little bit longer, I'm more selective about the events that I do attend. Mm-hmm. And what I did love about the event last year, which was what brought me back, was the interaction we had with the readers from the day before, during the event, and then after. It's not very often that you're invited to engage with the readers as much, and just on a real like human level where it's not like, buy my book, you know. Like we were able to sit down and have dinner, and it's people who have been following me on Facebook for years came up to me and they were like, oh my God, I love you, and we had real conversations, and I was like, oh, this is so cool, you know what I mean? So
it really is.
I think that chance to really build relationships with the readers as well as the bloggers and other authors, and just have that real human part of it was what really made me want to come back. Yeah.
Is there anything from maybe Once Upon a Book or any other event that you know that you would like to see? I
would like to see the panels more. Especially the ones where the readers were actually involved and they had like an open communication like they did at the Once Upon a Book. But I think it was really a good idea to be able to kind of feed off of the readers' energy a little bit and see what they're thinking. Not to say that it would change much about what I'm doing for me, but I think it was just a good way to, because I think it's good to know your audience, you know what I mean?
So, Jessica, what makes or breaks a book event for you? Is there a way you can judge if, like, no, this event, I wouldn't go to this because of these reasons? I can tell just by the way they're advertising it, or something that would give you a clue to avoid certain events, or to choose, you know, ones that you think are going to be good?
Well, you have to look at the organizers first and foremost. You have to see their professionalism, because I feel like if you're organizing an event, you need to treat it like, you know, a professional engagement. Okay. So I don't want to see a lot of bickering and things like that, which are natural. Like, you can just look at that, like they have the reader groups and all that, and you see how they interact there. But also, what promotion efforts are they making? Some people are very open with what they're doing, and they're showing, you know, the authors, this is what we're doing to promote this event. You know, we're out here, and they keep the, you know, tabs and everything. Some events you go and you don't hear anything, and you can show up and hope for the best. You know what I mean? Like, wow. I want those. I think if the organizers are as transparent as possible with what they're doing and giving you that comfort, and, you know, you can see them interacting with readers. I think, honestly, it comes from who's organizing it, as well as, okay, even if you have the best organizer and it's in a really bad location, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? I mean, if there's 10 really good readers in the neighborhood, you know, that's not going to help you. So you want to make sure the location is prime.
Thank you, Jessica, for being with the Writers Podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
You can find Jessica at jessicacage.com.
Next, we talked to author Brenda Haas, who discusses the things that can ruin an event as well as her experiences with attending library signings.
Brenda, tell us about yourself.
Okay, my name is Brenda Haas. I am a multi-award-winning indie author. I have published children's picture books, preteen historical fantasy, young adult historical romance. I've also published a metaphysical and visionary fictionary work. I freelance write for magazines. I've written screenplays for the Fenton Village Players to perform at their Fenton Ghost Walk. I am a guest teacher at Fenton High School, and I also tutor Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2.
So in other words, you have a lot of free time on your hands.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, how do you find time to write?
Yeah.
It's tough.
And historical fiction. I mean, that's because you have to be historically accurate. So that is a lot. I look at that as being more difficult than just making up the stuff that I make up. But
Definitely. It's a lot of research involved. You want to make sure, the character is doing something true to life that was back in that time period.
right.
Exactly. So, and what makes or breaks a book event for you?
Well, I think every book event is an opportunity to connect with other authors and with readers. I guess if there's low attendance, that's going to be something kind of bad. You want to be able to have that connection.
So in terms of advice to an author who's going to try one of these things, I think one of the things that you said, which we can draw out of it, is, going local is probably a good place to start. But also, what are your thoughts on picking venues that are more catered to your audience? So you do children's books, for example. Right. A library is doing a book event. That sounds like, a place kids are going to be in, and probably a good place.
Well, I have done some library events. It's a hit or miss kind of a thing. It's just, there are sometimes, everyone's there buying a children's book, and then I've been there before and nobody's buying it.
Yeah, so I guess people who go to library, the new library, by the way, is Barnes & Noble, but I guess people who go to library aren't used to paying for books. They're waiting for it to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
But it might be a good place to meet the author type of thing, if not sell
Definitely.
books.
I guess it would be a
Yes.
matter of fact of how much they publicize the event, too.
Well, Brenda, thank you so much for being on the Writers Podcast with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed the interview.
You can find Brenda at brendahaasbooks.com.
Now, we're going to find out more about preparing for your first author's signing.
Author Melissa Kerr has some tips for us, along with her thoughts on return on investment.
Melissa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books?
Well, I'm Melissa Keir, and I've been an author for about 5 years. I've written over 20 stories, which have appeared in over 40 books. My stories feature small towns where families come together, and happily ever after is always guaranteed.
Okay.
I like it.
So you're a mom, school teacher, and editor, so that's basically 3 jobs where you correct the course of others. When it comes to your own writing, who do you depend on to edit for you?
I have an amazing editor at Wizards in Publishing. They're fabulous, and they make my stories the best that they can be.
Okay. What are your, and I think in the independent, in the indie world, we see a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but we do see some writers who believe they have the gift of self-editing. What are your thoughts on a person editing, an author editing their own work?
Even if they're editors themselves.
That never works. I know myself personally that when I read something that I've written, my brain automatically puts certain things in that I know are missing. Words, letters, it reads things because I wrote it. Plus, if I've written it, sometimes I think it makes sense, but somebody else may not. And so it's very important, and I tell this from my students to everyone I talk to, that it really helps to get feedback on what you've written. I may think it's the best information and I'm explaining it well, but I may miss something because it's too close to me. And so getting that feedback is vitally important.
Yeah, we agree with you.
And my brain automatically sprinkles lots of commas. It's like salt. I just do it to taste, and I let the editor figure out which one should stay and which one should go. So if I take a breath, I put a comma in. If you were advising a first-time attendee, an author who's never been to a book signing before, a book event, what kind of advice would you give them?
Have fun. be sure that you have some ability to share some information about your books. Don't just freeze up. I know that a lot of us are introverts, not extroverts, and so it makes it a little nerve-wracking talking to other people about our books. We don't want to stand there and shove them in their face. I bring about 10 to 15 books with me, a variety of different things. I also bring information like book cards, things that show my website so that I can talk to different people. I love to compliment people when I meet them, not just to talk about my book, but I always find something in the person that I enjoy, like their shirt, or they've got beautiful earrings or jewelry. So I try and break the ice.
So usually you make the first move into talking to a reader?
I do. I don't like to stand behind the tables. I try and stand out front, and I like to just talk to them,
You really personalize it. That's pretty cool. So what about an author who's shy and very uncertain? Do you have any pointers for them on how to talk to readers? Or is it just like maybe complimenting them?
They should definitely know what, and practice beforehand what their book is about. Do that elevator pitch type of thing so that they can speak about their books to people. But yeah, I mean, make friends with the author next to you. I think I've had the most fun at book signings, and I'm not a very outgoing person, so I have the most fun when I've got a great author next to me and I can help promote their books, because I feel like then I'm not talking about just myself. I can say, hey, that book next to me is really great. You would really like it.
What about return on investment is always the question that I have. Not that it's just about the money, but in talking to yourself and other authors who've gone to a lot of these, it doesn't seem like the monetary side is the return on investment. So it doesn't look like sometimes these book events don't pay for the money you've invested in it. So what is it that you see as the real return on investment for attending?
You're right. It's not money. It's going to be hopefully that I've made a connection with someone, that they're more interested in looking at my book again, or following me on Facebook, or something like that, where I can maybe establish a relationship. Relationships don't happen overnight.
Did you attend Once Upon a Book last year, or was this your first year?
No, I did attend it last year, and I'm already signed up for next year.
Oh,
Excellent.
Fantastic. So we'll see you there.
Got your toga already?
Well, we'll see about the toga.
We'll all see about that. I just say, well, I got 365 gym days to make that determination.
Yes.
Thank you, Melissa, for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
You can find Melissa at melissacare.com.
Another author with some great advice is Misha McKenzie.
Misha, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books?
I write paranormal romance, and
Is there a lot of sex in that?
Yes, there is.
Like a lot?
Hot and steamy, I like to tell people, because I've looked at some of my reviews online, and they'll be like, oh, the sex was just too much. I'm like, how can there be too much? It's a romance novel, So, yeah. Got published 3 years ago. I now have 9 books on the market, 2 4-book series, and a standalone e-novella.
So what would you tell an author who's thinking about attending a conference but they have never attended one?
Definitely do it. You build such good friendships and so many links to other people, and it's just, there's nothing bad about it. I mean, even if not many people come to buy your books, you're still building those relationships with other authors, and sometimes other venues in the industry.
How would a first-time author prep? What would you say? Like, from your experience, you've done these before. Here's the 3 things you want to make sure you do, or you bring, or you set up before when you're there, before you get there.
Books, of course. To have plenty of copies of books, because my biggest fear, I bring everything I own with me.
Well, plenty is like plenty maybe 5, 10. What do you bring for a book count?
I bring everything I have. because my biggest fear is to get in the afternoon of an event and have to tell people I'm out of books.
Okay.
So I'll bring 25 of every book I have, and luckily you're able to ship your stuff out first, and then have it there. Probably another good thing is either like business cards or some type of swag, because a lot of people don't want to purchase the books, because a lot of them do the e-readers.
Yep.
So you need something that's going to have your name, your website, your Facebook and all that kind of stuff, so that later when they're home and they're going through everything that they brought, they can remember you and that they wanted to pick up your book.
Thank you so much for being a part of the Writers Podcast, Misha.
Thank you.
You can find Misha at mishamckenzie.com.
To continue on the advice wagon, we also talked to author Susan Bordorf, who told us before the interview that she had a lot to say about the writing industry for indie authors.
So, of course, we had to find out just what that was.
Susan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your books?
Okay, well, my name is Susan Bordorf, and I have been writing for a really long time, but have only recently, since 2015, really seriously been writing and published 2 YA contemporary novels. One is called Breaking Fences, and the other is A Cygnet's Tale.
What do you think has changed the most in the past? We see changes in the indie world and who's involved and how many people have stopped being involved. But what are you seeing as some of the biggest changes over the past 7 years?
Oh gosh, there are so many things. Right at the very beginning, the things that I noticed were that people did not understand the business of writing. Now there's a lot more knowledge about that. Whether people take advantage, that's up to them. But there's also a lot more folks who are taking pride in what they do. We're not just throwing a book out there, we're putting out a quality book. So, and I think that's the biggest change that I've seen. And then that's in the personal end, like writing. But then also the industry itself, I've seen a lot of pull from the traditional publishing world versus the indie publishing world, where there's a lot of prejudice about an indie published person that I hoped would be over with by now. We have quality editors out there working for the indie published books. We have great formatters, we have awesome cover artists. We're an industry all in our own. Maybe it's a threat to the traditional, which most people would say, no, they've got the backing. But with the condensing of the traditional published world, the opportunities are less and less. So most folks who want to write a book have to go the indie route if they want to get it published.
Well, and the truth is, and we've talked about this on earlier podcasts, readers don't care whose imprint is on your book, as long as it's a well-written, good story, doesn't have a lot of grammatical errors, all that.
Exactly.
Good stuff. So you've been to a lot of conferences before you actually published. What do you think is the biggest benefit for an author in going to these conferences?
Networking is the biggest advantage. Don't go thinking you're going to get the answer. There's no right answer when you're publishing a book. The right answer is whatever's right for you. The biggest advantage to a workshop is meeting those formatters and editors and cover artists and the other authors that are going to be your resources when you're working on your book. I found numerous critique partners, beta readers, folks that were helping me produce my best work at conferences. So there's no wrong way to attend a conference. It's more about what you hope to get out from the end of it.
So if you're an author who's thinking about it, you're going to do, and you say, hey, definitely do it, what would be your summary advice for this author who's going to do one for the first time, going to go to their first conference?
Make friends. Make lots of friends. Don't think it's a lonely job. Everyone thinks writing is somebody in a corner somewhere typing away on a computer, and that's fine if that works for you. But once you've produced that, you're going to need somebody to read it. So make those connections that'll give you a beta reader. My advice to any person starting it for the first time is do a lot of reading within the genre that you want to write in, and make those connections that will help you produce a quality product. Because the last thing you want to do is put a book out and have somebody review it and say this is horrible, don't buy it. It will devastate.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank
We
you
appreciate
so
the
much.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
There you go. If you wonder what to do with all those connections, Susan just spelled it out. Find her on Facebook under Susan Bordorf, author.
We also spoke with author Melanie Jane, who's attended a lot of conferences and had some really great tips.
Melanie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books?
Oh, well, thank you. I'm Melanie Jane. I write contemporary romance featuring characters over the age of 35. I also feature females that are size 16 or above and unapologetically big and proud of it.
So I find that interesting because we definitely, in well, the world, this country at least, we market to women who are size 2, and that's not the reality of the average size of women today, and that's definitely not the reality of women who enjoy romance novels of any type. So I think it's, what are the challenges, though, in adding such reality to a genre that's probably known for more ideal romantic book covers, etc.?
Well, I can't find a large enough model for a book cover that pleases my eye. What cover artists feel is a larger woman is a size 10, maybe with big boobs. Right. Let's be honest. It's hard. I mean, I was a fashion merchandising major, so I, understand the fashion business. I know that a size 0 is now what everyone wants to be, except real women aren't that way. And in my books, my characters, they're living the real life, and the last thing they worry about is what their size is. And they are very much a take me as I am. Mm-hmm. I got a big butt. Deal with it or hit the door.
Interesting.
Okay, so how many conferences have you attended?
In total, as an author, I probably attended 25. As a reader, I probably attended 20 before that. This year, I just finished today, number 7 of 11 scheduled for 2017. So I'm a road warrior. I love to meet people. I love to meet readers, other authors. I will talk to anyone about reading. You don't have to read my books. I just want to know what you're reading, what you like.
More authors than not don't go on the road. They don't go to conferences. They don't go to rom-coms or horror cons or whatever it is. And mostly because of uncertainties and what's the experience? Is it going to be good for me? What's your advice to someone who's thinking about it but hasn't done it yet?
I would say probably for your first event, something small and close to home so you can drive to it. Bring a buddy to pump you up, to hold your hand beforehand, to tell you you're great. But also as an author, be able to do a 10-second sale on every book. So practice that. So you can talk about your series, but also each book. Very quick tag. You only have someone's attention for a few seconds, but you need to be able to do that. And I will be honest, at my first RT I went to in Chicago years ago, I was shocked at some of the big name romance writers. And I would say, oh, well, what's this book about? And they would say, well, it's about a man and a woman and how they fell in love. Okay, every book in here has that story. I was shocked that they didn't do it. So I said to myself, this is something I'm going to really work on. And it's helped.
It's the elevator speech.
Yes.
So is that what you would advise any author who's never attended, or do you have any other advice to give them?
First of all, I think it's important to do it. I think in this day and age, it's important for readers to meet you. We can be on social media with that presence, but that's not really who we are. I think it's important to read your readers and network with other authors. You learn so much from the people that are in the trenches right beside you, so that's important too. So I would say just try it. If you hate it, don't ever do it again. If you love it, go back out.
So books, swag, what kind of things would you suggest they bring?
Breath mints.
Okay.
Breath mints, bottle of water. Swag, that's the never-ending battle. Swag can be as much as just your business card. Right. But I would say no matter what you do, display your books so that they can be seen. And make sure your covers have impact. That's the most important thing.
Let our listeners know where they can find you, your website.
Fabulous. I'm at www.readmelaniejane.com. You can look me up as Melanie Jane, but there is a porn star with that name. So if you get to a website that has boobs, not me. I talk about boobs in my books, but no boobs. And then I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Well, thank you so much, Melanie. This has been fun.
Thank you all very much, and everybody keep on reading.
So to help you avoid a porn star, once again, Melanie's website is readmelaniejane.com.
I'm not even going to comment. We also spoke with author Susa Cates. We had the pleasure of sitting with Susa and her husband during the dinner ball and had a great time with them.
And I wanted to save her for last, because what better way to end a string of interviews than with a real sweetheart? But with a dark twist. You'll need to listen on to see what I mean.
Susa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books?
Okay. Well, again, my name is Susa Cates, and I've been an indie author since 2010. I'm best known for my Savannah Coven series, Paranormal Romance.
The thing I found most interesting, going through your bio, you had said that the two books that you had to reread immediately upon finishing were Little Woman and Mind Hunters. So a romance and a book on serial killers.
Right.
So how do you put these two diverse elements together into your life and your reading?
Well, Little Women, I was much younger and was infatuated with Jo March, independent woman who, of all things, wanted to be a writer. And once I finished it, I had to just restart and enter their world again. And years later, in my early 20s, I came across Mindhunter, which is about profiling of serial killers.
Yes.
And I've always loved the dark side of things. So it just makes sense to write love stories with a twist.
Twisted
a dark
romance,
twist.
as you call it. Psycho lovers or just twisted romance?
Twisted romance, yeah. Usually it's normal lovers who encounter some twisted psychos.
Gotcha. So how many, I know, but I'm going to ask you anyways, how many conferences have you attended? And when I say conference, I mean reader type of conferences.
Reader type, strictly reader conferences, probably about 5 or 6 at this point. And they're always different, but always fun. Getting to meet actual readers in person is always a good thing.
What do you think the biggest benefit that you found from this particular conference, and then compare it to others?
This conference seems to have some really avid readers. They're all avid readers, but these folks are very, they take it very seriously.
Okay.
And I love that, because then you get really direct feedback about what they like and don't like in a book. And they're really just open and natural about having a conversation with you about books in general.
You've been to larger ones. Is that a different experience when it's a big
Yes.
rom-com?
Yes. The rom-con, they have games, and I mean it's an intense experience for 2 or 3 days. So the only thing is you don't get to take part in everything. You're sort of you have your rooms or your panels that you're assigned to, but those are great.
So aside from the benefits, what do you love most about the experience?
Gosh, meeting the readers. I mean, it's just
That'd be the best.
it's. And I tell you what, I always get, it's like an injection of writer's caffeine, because I'm always ready to go back and hit it again and get that next book out there.
So if you were a new writer, maybe you had a book out or two, and you've never attended one of these, kind of on the fence about it, what would be your suggestion?
Definitely to give it a shot, because I think every author, there are all kinds of different ways to market and promote yourself, but I think every author finds what works best for them, what they're most comfortable with. And I'd say definitely give it a shot. Go prepared, get ready to give away lots of swag.
So swag, how many books? Like, that's always been a question. I've never attended one as an author, so I always wonder, how many books do authors bring to these? What kind of prep do you do for that?
It varies, but usually 15 to 20 of each title. Of course, it depends on how many. I usually bring 3 titles maximum. 30 books approximately, maybe more. It just really depends on what two. A lot of the conventions will give you a reader expected number, and so I sort of base it off of that.
What's one thing you found that's missing from Readers Conference? Like, what would you like to see?
I would like to see more of the one-on-one reader time, the games, and you sort of take the author out from behind the table, and they're readers too. So when you get to speak to other readers about what you enjoy, you just connect on a different level, and I enjoy that.
When you're going to attend one of these conferences, do you promote it to your existing fan base?
Yes, definitely. A little bit over the preceding months, and then as I get closer to the time, I send out a newsletter that's specific to an area saying, if you're able to make it to this convention, I'll be there. So, especially for my street team, I always like to give them special attention and treats when I see them. So.
What about an author who worries, what if I set up a table and no one visits me?
I doubt no one will visit you, or anyone for that matter would have that problem. Then
I think it's the biggest. I mean, you attend, so you're used to it. But I think the big fear for an author who's never attended is like, and is just getting started is, well, I don't have a fan base that I can send a newsletter to. What if I just sit there and nobody visits me? I feel, So
that's actually a good question now that I think about it that way. And I actually say don't worry about it because I think every author has been there. So it's just, I don't want to say it's part of paying the dues, but it's just, you just sort of have to feel your way. And as you continue on, keep pushing forward. Don't stop because of that. Because as you continue to grow your audience, write more books, it all builds. And pretty soon you'll lose your voice from talking to all the people who stop at your table.
And if for first-time authors attending, Susan says that she'll come and visit your table. So you
exactly,
absolutely
yes.
Excellent.
All right.
Very good. Well, thank you for
thank
joining
you guys.
us.
That was easier than I expected.
You can find Susan Cates at her home at 1237. No, I'm kidding. I'm not giving her address. You can find Susan Cates at www.susancates.com.
Raymond, it was really great having an opportunity to speak to such diverse group of authors.
It really was, and they provided some really interesting insights to the whole author signing event thing.
Right. It's clear that authors who attend signings truly believe that they make a difference to both their fan base and their careers.
Between you and I'm still a little bit up in the air as to the return on investment. And I understand the fan base thing, and I understand you're probably not going to sell a lot of books, but it's still good to get out there and mingle,
right.
Which I think is why it's important that next week we're going to hear from a very prolific reader, big indie fan, and get her thoughts on author interactions with their fans.
And her own tips for how authors should prepare for conferences. So thanks for joining.
And we'll see you next week on The Writers Podcast.
Thank you for listening to The Writers Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more articles, news, and advice, visit our website, writersafterdark.net, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The Writers Podcast is a Writers After Dark radio production. Executive producers SK Anthony and Raymond Esposito. Copyright 2017.